Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I've got a whole bunch of new cards to show you today from the new expansion, Saviors of Uldum. So let's get straight into it. This is Plague of Flames. It's rare, 1 mana. Destroy all your minions. For each one, destroy a random enemy minion. This card is extremely powerful. The fact that it only costs 1 mana, it makes it extremely flexible. You can just play it on any number of different turns. And all you really need to make this card good is a 1 mana 1/1. You just need one card on the board, or one tiny minion. Maybe it's a minion that's got Reborn, so it comes back anyway. Then you play this and you kill a random enemy minion. Now, there are a number of ways you could do a full board clear. Refarm Scheme is one. Refarm Scheme is not a particularly good card, but if you've had it in your hand for a few turns, it only costs 3 mana. So you could summon a board of 7 1/1s and then play Plague of Flames and kill all of your opponent's minions as well as yours. The downside, of course, is that you don't have a board left over afterwards, but because Plague of Flames is so cheap, you could probably follow it up with other minions. If you're playing Lackey Warlock, just play a couple of your lackeys, get their cool battlecry effects, then play this and destroy 2 enemy minions. It's so strong. There are downsides, of course. If you top deck this late game and you've got nothing on the board, then you can't use it. But, you know, Warlock's got usually a lot of ways to draw cards, obviously with their hero power, so they're never usually stuck with one card in their hand. So I think you should usually be able to find a use for this. I suppose it is quite dangerous just relying on this as your only board clear, because if you're playing a Murloc deck or a token deck, for example, something like Hellfire just might work better for you, just because it obviously doesn't have that pre-requirement of having some minions on the board for yourself. So I think Plague of Flames does have a little bit of a downside in that respect, but if you're playing a control deck, then this is something you could play. You may even play it in a Zoo deck. I know Zoo doesn't want to destroy its own board, but Zoo does have a lot of low cost minions, so if it comes to the situation where you just need to get rid of 1 or 2 big minions, then maybe you would sacrifice a couple of yours to play this and then play the rest of your small minions on the board for your Zoo Warlock. So a very good Plague in my opinion. I expect to see a lot of this. I should say as well, there's a good combo with the Expired Merchant, which is the new card coming out in Uldum, which is 2 mana 2/1 that has the Battlecry of discard a card, your highest cost card, and then Death Rattle, add 2 copies of it to your hand. So for 3 mana, you could play your Expired Merchant first, then you could play the Plague, destroy the enemy minion, and get 2 copies of your highest cost card back in your hand. So there are some really good combos here, and I expect it to be very powerful. Next up, let's look at a couple of Druid cards which synergize together very nicely. And we'll start with the Anubisaf Defender. It's epic, it's 5 mana, 3 attack, 5 health, and taunt. But it has a very strong power of, it costs 0 if you cast a spell that costs 5 or more this turn. Now, Arcane Tyrant was in the game previously, and that was played almost exclusively in Druid. Some big spell mage could play it as well, but it was played a lot in Druid because you could just use Ultimate Infestation, and you can play a card like this for 0. Now that is so strong, being able to play a big spell, get the big effect, but then also having the tempo of putting a minion down on the board as well. And when it's with card draw, it means that you might draw this, so it's easy to get it out of your hand, so you're not overdrawing cards later on in the game. So this has many good applications to it. We saw the new Druid card, which can either restore 12 health or summon a 6/6 with Taunt. Well, now you can play these two together, so you also get a 3/5 with Taunt. And if you've completed the quest, you could restore 12 health, summon a 6/6 with Taunt, and a 5/5, or even 2 of these if you've got 2 of them in your hand. So you can see how the plays get really, really strong. Nourish is another spell that works with it. But let's look at the new spell coming out, which actually I think kind of knits this together. And I'm not entirely sure about the power level of this, but I think it's very good, and I think it will be good in a lot of Druid decks, as long as you're not playing Token Druid. And it's called Overflow. It's rare, it costs 7 mana, so it's quite expensive, but it restores 5 health to all characters and draws 5 cards. Any card in Hearthstone that can give you card draw is almost always worthwhile. Drawing 5 cards is incredibly powerful. Drawing it for 7 mana is very expensive, but we've seen Sprint in Rogue. It's a completely different class, but that draws you 4 cards for 7 mana. That don't really want to be playing 7 mana to play that. That's usually played with preparation, etc. But in this instance, Druid does have ramp. Not quite like it used to, but it does have ramp, so you could play this out a bit earlier. But just being able to draw 5 cards can really turn an archetype on its head and just give it that fuel that it needs. Now, let's have a look at this in different sections, because the restoring 5 health, why is that important to Druid? Often it's not that important, but if you're playing a Lucent Bark deck, it is, of course, because restoring 5 health could then suddenly regenerate all of your Lucent Barks. So let's just say you've only got 1 Lucent Bark on the board that's dead. Playing this card is instantly awesome, because you get to draw 5 cards and summon your Lucent Bark back. If you've got the Anubis of Defender, then it just piles on the tempo, and it's really good, and then you've got 5 cards in your hand to just keep you in the game, and then constantly keep doing what you're doing adds more fuel. The downside to the card is very obvious. It restores 5 health to all characters, so your opponent's face, which is probably the least problematic, but also your opponent's board, so that can be a big issue. This is not the sort of card you can just blindly play on turn 7, because if you've not got anything else to play that turn, then you're in a bit of trouble. Just bolstering your opponent's health on the board is just not going to help you out. But like I've said before, there are other ways you can play this card to make it work, and you just need to make it work in your favour. So I think a Quest Druid, it's looking more likely with cards like this and the Anubis of Defender, because obviously the quest doesn't synergize directly with this, but it helps you to draw cards to give you those choose one options in your hand that you can use after you complete the quest. So this card's really cool. I think Druid needs it, and although I don't think it's as good as Ultimate Infestation was, I think it can be very strong. Ultimate Infestation was one of the best cards ever printed, so hopefully we don't see anything on that power level again. But yeah, look out for this one, because I think a lot of Druid decks are going to be playing this. Next we have Micro Mummy for Paladin. This is a epic 2 mana minion, 1 attack, 2 health, and it's got Reborn. And the effect is at the end of your turn, give another friendly minion plus 1 attack. Now these sort of cards are pretty decent because they're constantly buffing the rest of your board. So if you're playing any kind of small minion board, or you're using the Paladin hero power, then this kind of thing can be quite good. Now, I don't think on its own it's good enough. Having Reborn means it comes back again. It's difficult for your opponents to remove. But I think the fact that it's a mech makes this very, very strong, because you can upgrade it and keep it on the board. And just, you know, we know how mechs constantly snowball on the board if you don't remove them. Well, this increases the snowball because 1, it can be reduced by the Galvanizer, and 2, it just buffs your other minions on the deck, on the board, sorry. So loads of really good options for this. It doesn't have much of a threat the turn it's played, unless it can buff something else. So it's kind of like your opponent can clear this quite easily because it's only got 1 attack. But like I said, once you start adding other mechs to it, then it can become really strong. It's a Reborn minion, so it works with the quest. And once you've completed the quest, if you play this and then summon a 2/2 copy of it, they'll both buff each other. So you can see why this would be quite good. I don't know whether, I mentioned that because it's a mech, it can synergize with other mechs. I don't know whether you would 100% want to put this in a mech deck, just because Kangor's Ender's Army could bring back this, and it's not great, right? And if it gets reborn, it summons itself again without the mechanical upgrades. So you may get this put in your Kangor's pool, which is quite important for Paladin. But yeah, this is an interesting card nonetheless, and I definitely expect this to see some play, or experimentation at least, because it does have a nice snowball effect that potentially Paladin will want. Now let's take a look at High Priest Amit for Priest, and oh my god, this is a good card, guys. It's a legendary, it's 4 mana, 2 attack and 7 health. Whenever you summon a minion, set its health equal to this minion's. So there's so many kind of uses for this card, but ultimately what the best one would be is Divine Spirit and Inner Fire combos, OTK combos. Because whenever you summon a minion, it will set it to 7 health. So if you summon a charge minion, it will get 7 health, which you can then Topsy-Turvy or Inner Fire for 7 damage into your opponent's face. So Stone Tusk Boar is only a 1 mana card. So for 1 mana you play this, then you play Topsy-Turvy and you've got 7 damage in your opponent's face. What you can also do though for 10 mana is you can buff High Priest Amit's health. So you put Divine Spirit on it twice, make it 28 health. Then you play 2 Stone Tusk Boars for the remaining 2 mana that you've got left that turn, if you've got 10. Then you can play Topsy-Turvy on both of them, and you've got 56 charge damage to your opponent's face. Now that's quite a lot of cards to draw to be able to do that. But we saw that Priest can actually draw cards really quickly, like what they did with Nomi Priest. But it works with all of the charge minions as well. So if you're playing Reckless Rocketeer and if you're playing Leroy, etc., you can actually get a little bit more damage out of those cards if you need to. So it's a really cool card. You could also play this in a buff Priest deck, like if you're playing this with Extra Arms, because Extra Arms is brilliant. It's a really good card now. It just hasn't really had the deck. But if you can play Extra Arms on this card, then it's going to be a bit more sticky, and of course anything you summon will also have the health of this. So anything you can add to High Priest Amulet will then buff your later cards. Now there are some downsides. Obviously if you're playing minions with more than 7 health, then you're going to be losing health, so that's a downside. The other downside is that although Priest can heal this, if your opponent damages the minion and it's got 1, 2 or 3 health, any minion you summon after that will have 3 health rather than the 7. So you do need to heal it back up before you do that. But Priest can do that with Circle of Healing, etc. So there's going to be a lot of good options. I mean, depending on what type of deck you're playing, imagine if you could just play a Northshire Cleric and have it had 7 health rather than 3. It's pretty big. So I think it's good. I think it will see some play in Priest. The stats of it are okay as well for 4 mana. Usually cards like this have a 4 mana sort of 7-1 stat line. This is 7-2, so it's not insignificant. But yeah, ultimately I think it's going to be a combo card. It is just a legendary though, so it's only 1 copy in your deck. So are you going to be able to draw this and be able to play it? Like I said before, Priest has shown that it doesn't have problems drawing through its deck. But if you're playing like an Extra Arms type of variant of it, it might be quite difficult to get hold of this. Anyway, this is a really cool card and definitely one that I think will work. Next, let's take a look at Warrior, and we have got the quest revealed for Warrior. It's called Hack the System. It's a 1 mana card, legendary obviously. Quest, attack 5 times with your hero, and reward you get Anrefet's Core, and that basically is a 2 mana hero power that refreshes when you attack, and it summons a 4/3 golem. So if you use the hero power, attack with your hero, you can refresh it and summon another 4/3 golem. This card to me is very disappointing. I don't think it's very good. It doesn't match what Warrior really does at the moment anyway. And also there's no point in playing, in my opinion, there's no point in playing it if you've got Dr. Boom, because Dr. Boom's hero power is so much better than this. You need the rush from the mechs. If you play Dr. Boom first and then play this afterwards, there is an argument of maybe you could use this because you would still be Dr. Boom, so all of your mechs would still have rush, which I think is really important. But you would lose the hero power of Dr. Boom and replace it with Anrefet's Core, which is just summon a 4/3 golem, which is good for 2 mana. It's good, but you do have to attack with your hero to regenerate it. So how many attacks are you actually going to get? Warrior's got some good weapons. Super Collider's very good. Wrench Caliber's very good. So it's not going to be hard to activate this quest. But it's how many 4/3s are you going to be summoning from this card? How many times are you actually going to be summoning them? If you're playing Control Warrior and you've got loads of control cards, being able to summon a 4/3 is very good. If it was on a 4/3 every turn that you can just push the button without having to attack, then I think this would be much better, because Control Warriors kind of would like that. They remove your minion, summon a 4/3. They remove your minion, summon a 4/3. And you can see how that would just build up over time, and a Control Warrior would really like that. But having to attack just makes this quite hard. There are other weapons like Gorehowl. Gorehowl could on its own help you to complete this quest if you're just attacking minions with it. Sulthraze has Overkill. You can attack again, so you can attack actually 4 times in 1 turn with that card. So maybe we'll see some more weapons seeing play. But I don't think it's as good as what Warrior actually does now, and with Dr. Boom in the game, I don't see why you would want to do this, because I think Dr. Boom's hero power is just better, honestly. I could be wrong. It would be interesting to see, because it is very strong, like I said, to summon a 4/3 for 2 mana, and being able to summon them 2 in the same turn could actually be very good, but we just need the weapons to be able to do that. If you look at Warrior right now, they do play 2 weapons projects, so that's 6 attacks. So just on the 2 weapons project, you could actually finish this quest. But then there's only 1 durability left over to summon one of these. You also play Super Collider, which is a 3 attack weapon. 3 durability weapon. But when you've got Super Collider equipped, you don't really want to swing with it unless it's the right moment, until your opponent's board's right, because you want to keep it equipped so that they have to constantly play around with it. It's about disrupting your opponent. So that again is a little bit strange. You wouldn't want to hit face with it. And Dr. Boom's going to rotate out before this does, so there will be a day when this becomes a bit better. But it'll be just unfortunate if you open this during this expansion, I think. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be awesome. We'll see. Now let's take a look at Sunstruck Henchman, and I don't like this card at all. It's a 4 mana, 6 attack, 5 health minion. At the start of your turn has a 50% chance to fall asleep. So the ogres usually have these weird effects. And what this just basically means is at the start of the turn it can regain summoning sickness, so you can't attack with it that turn. So if you play this on turn 4, on turn 5 there's a 50% chance it will still be asleep. So whilst it's quite funny, I actually don't like these sort of cards because if you're playing against this, it's just a 50% chance that you're going to get hit in the face for 6. And it just always feels bad. Like one of you will feel bad. Either you'll feel bad or your opponent will feel bad. So I think this is probably going to be more randomly generated. It will come into the game occasionally, you know how Hearthstone always does. I don't think anyone's going to want to put this in their deck, because if you put this in your main deck, just be prepared for some frustration is all I'm going to say about that. But obviously, because of the downsizing effect, it's got some great stats. So if you can play it and silence it, then it's great. So that's what you're kind of looking for. Maybe Silence Priest could use this kind of card, but yeah, don't use it as it is. Next we look at Plague of Wrath for Warrior. This is a 5 mana spell which is very powerful. Destroy all damaged minions. So I've mentioned before in the reviews, Warrior has loads of ways to deal 1 damage. Warpath is one, although you probably wouldn't want to combine it with this, but you could. Whirlwind is another one to deal 1 damage. Dr. Boom's Hero Power, one of them does 1 damage to all minions. So there are ways that you can do this. Also, Dr. Boom mechs have rush, etc., so you can rush them into enemy minions to damage them first. So having that effect for 5 mana is very, very strong. The downside, of course, is combining it with another card makes it weaker. If you just top deck this and your opponent's just played a big bunch of minions on the board, then you can't remove them with this card because none of them are damaged. So you do need other conditions to make this work. And that's why I don't think this card is as good as Brawl at all. It's the same mana cost, it's a spell. But Brawl obviously leaves 1 minion behind, but we all know how strong that card is. Warrior can often deal with the minion that gets left behind. And it's just has the huge advantage of always being able to have a benefit if your opponent's got a board. This spell, however, you could play it just to clear 1 or 2 minions. You wouldn't be upset if you paid 5 mana, especially in the Warrior class. We've seen Assassinate in Rogue, which wasn't played because it was too expensive and too slow. But in Warrior, I think if you were just to destroy 1 minion with this, then I think you could play it if it was a big minion, for example. Because they're in Control Warrior, they're usually quite happy to sit back. If your opponent's played a big minion, you have to rush a small mech in and play this, and you destroy it and your turn's over. As a Warrior, that's usually fine. You don't need too much tempo to put back on because you've got other control cards. So I don't think this is going to see a lot of play just because Warpath and Brawl are so potent at the moment. They're so good. And this, of course, doesn't deal with death rattles like Warpath can when you look at Token Druid, for example. So whilst I think this is a very good card, until Warpath rotates out, it might not see much play. Next we've got Colossus of the Moon. This is a 10 mana 10/10 minion with Divine Shield and Reborn. So remember, Reborn means it comes back to life with the Divine Shield in this case and 1 health. So this card is very good. It's a bit too slow to play on turn 10, I think, but I think it's almost there. I think if in the right kind of deck at 10 mana you could play this and not be too upset. The problem is it just is a 10 mana card that just goes onto the board and it doesn't deal with any of your opponent's boards. So by that stage in the game, if you're staring down, like if your health is pretty low and you're playing against a rogue or something, you know you're going to die the next turn if you play something like this without taunt or that doesn't rush or anything like that. So it's pretty close to being a strong play on turn 10. But where this is incredible is if you can cheat it out with recruit mechanics. And this is going straight into my Dual Paladin deck, because if you play Dual on turn 5 and you pull this out, It's got Divine Shield, so it doesn't even lose any health when it trades with the other minion. It's got 10 attacks, so it's pretty much going to kill every other minion in the game. Not every minion, but very close. And if your opponent manages to kill it, it comes back to life with 1 health. Paladin can heal it with a few cards. We saw the 2 mana card that's coming in the new expansion, the 2 mana 2/3 that restores a minion to full health. You could use it on this, and that would be extreme value. So it's going to be very difficult for people to deal with. Let's say if you did play this out of duel, and your opponent has a, let's say they play Warp the Plank or something, they can kill it with Warp the Plank, but it does come back with Divine Shield and Reborn. So it's unlikely that even if they kill it with a removal spell, they'll be able to trade 2 minions in to kill it as well. It's a lot of resources to get rid of that. So if you're pulling this out of anything, it's very good. Like Warrior can do it with Dimensional Ripper. You can also do it with Plot Twist Warlock. I think Plot Twist Warlock could use this. It's not very good out of Dorian, but out of Fellord Betrug, it's pretty incredible. So a very nice card. I like it a lot, but not necessarily a card you're going to put in your deck that you want to play on turn 10. Whenever there's going to be recruit mechanics or cheating minions out of your deck mechanics, cheating minions out of your hand, like the Boom Ship, for example, it's very good. This card will always be looked at. So pretty cool, and I hope I open this one because I think it will go into a lot of decks that I like to play. Next, let's look at the Grand Mummy, and this one wins the award for the best name. Pretty cool card art. It's got 2 mana, 1 attack, 2 health, and it's got Reborn, and its Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion +1/+1. So when it dies, it comes back as a 1/1, and it gives another minion +1/+1, and then when that dies, it gives another minion +1/+1. So if you look at that, for 2 mana, you're kind of getting 5/4 in stats. So you're kind of getting 5 health and 4 attack in stats. Because when it dies, it buffs and it comes back as a Reborn minion. So in Priest, a deck that's playing extra arms, that kind of thing, this is really good because you can buff your other minions on the board, and it's just a huge amount of stat value for 2 mana. So I think the card's very good. The problem with it is, though, in a lot of instances, your opponent will be able to deal with it very easily. So if you play this on turn 2, and your opponent can potentially trade a minion in. If you're playing a rogue, maybe they could play their dagger as well, and they could kill both of these, this and its Reborn, without you getting any buffs on any other minions. And it's only got 1 attack, so it's very easy to trade into with your opponent. So that is the downside of this card. But if you play your Nausea Cleric on 1 and it survives, and you can play your Grand Mummy on 2, and then you start buffing your Nausea Cleric, that's where Priest can snowball, and it's really good. So I like this card. I think it's very good. Priest does need some good early minions. They just, I think there will be some instances though where you play this and your opponent can deal with it very easily. Next we have Generous Mummy, and this is a neutral Reborn minion, which is rare. So of course this can go into the quest Paladin, which wants you to summon Reborn minions. It's 3 mana, 5 attack, 4 health, and it has the effect of your opponent's cards cost 1 less. So 3 mana, 5 attack, 4 health, which comes back as a 5/1, is incredible stats. It's so powerful. But giving your opponent a 1 mana discount on their cards is very risky. Usually these kind of effects, I think the only good effect to give your opponent is usually restoring health to your opponent. That's one that doesn't have too many downsides, whereas this I think has so many downsides. So many opportunities for your opponents to just completely take advantage of you. Lackeys only cost 1 mana. Well, of course, if this is on the board, then they only cost 0 mana. So you can see how things would snowball. Any kind of cheap spell gets discounted. Mage can play all of their 1 mana spells with 0 mana. So yeah, this is not a card I'm going to play. If you silence it, then of course it has some benefits, of course, because then your opponent's cards won't cost 1 less. But I don't think, outside of you actually specifically building that deck, you're not going to want to play this card. And you're not going to want to get this randomly generated, because there will be times where your opponent has the Emperor Thaurissan effect on their whole hand and they completely destroy you. So, a pretty cool effect that's interesting, but ultimately I think you'll get punished. If you play it actually on turn 3, then your opponent, depending on what deck you're playing against it, and that's really where it lies, but They might not be able to do anything for that mana cost, but yeah, I'm not one to take that risk, so not for me. Next, we have another Reborn minion. This is the Wasteland Assassin. So it's 5 mana, 4 attack, and 2 health, and it has Stealth and Reborn. So this one's got a little bit more potential, although I still don't think it's great, because if you play it on turn 5, nothing happens. But it does have 8 attack, potentially, for 5 mana over the next couple of turns. So you can attack into a minion, maybe kill it for attack, maybe not by turn 5 to be honest, but then it comes back with 1 health and stealth, so you can attack again. Now if there are any stealth synergies in the game, which there aren't really any good ones right now, then this could work, but at the moment I don't think it's good enough. A 5 mana to have a 4/2 that can be dealt with so easily by Warpath, Dynamatic, any low cost spells that do a little bit of damage will just kind of wreck you with this card, so I don't expect to see this one too much, to be honest. And finally for today we have Pressure Plate, which is a 2 mana secret. After your opponent casts a spell, destroy a random enemy minion. So we've seen this effect before in Secrets for Hunter, and that was Catrick, and I think Catrick was better than this card, but I still think this card has an important place in Hunter, because at the moment they don't have any secrets that trigger after your opponent casts a spell. So if you're playing against Hunter, you're always quite confident in playing secrets because, playing spells, because you know that the secret's not going to get triggered by that. However, now you're going to have to be considering when you're going to play your secrets. Is Pressure Plate going to trigger? And Hunter does have randomly generated secrets now from other cards, so you're going to have to play around this, and that's kind of a big deal, I think. Now, the effect for 2 mana is a 2 mana deadly shot that you can't control, your opponent controls. So it does have a very good effect, but if you're playing against Murloc Shaman or any other Murloc deck, they don't really care. They're just gonna trigger it, and you might kill one of their good Murlocs, or you probably just get a 1/1 Murloc dead. So it really depends on the meta and the decks. But if your opponent's playing a deck like Divine Spirit in a Fire that I was talking about before, and you've got this secret up, it'll make them think twice. They've got their minion on the board, they want to buff it to hit you in the face and kill you, but if they do and they don't have any other minions, Pressure Plate could kill them. So there's some good kind of situations for this card, and I think just the idea of having it in your arsenal of secrets is really going to be what makes this one good. I don't think it's too much of a main deck card, but we'll see. It does have a powerful effect, but it's just easy to play around if your opponent knows what it is, because you just cast the spell before you play a minion, or you just play a bunch of minions first and then trigger it. So pretty cool, but we'll see how it shakes out. Alright guys, well that's all the cards we've got to look at today, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about them, and I'll see you again next time.